to my truck to get something, and one of the neighbors said, I was like, hey, you need to come over. She's like, oh, I'll be out there for the second line. And I was like, man, why don't you come over here and get this knowledge, right? But it's the second line that got her excited. So I think the thing that, one of the things that this is telling me that we still have to be very intentional about our work. We really have to, think creatively on how to reach people where they are. If it is a second line running through the space to get people to come out. But then when they come out, are they going to really absorb the information and be empowered by it? So we got a lot of work to do, y'all. This is kind of like our civil rights moment. If you really want to think about it, it's healthy. It really is. Like, we really got to get intentional. How do we communicate messages to people from diverse populations around why you need access? This is how real this work is, y'all. Like, we might have an intimate crowd, but just right across the street from us, his house is now up for sale. This is very real work. And we've been gifted the opportunity to learn and to educate, but we have to think creatively to reach the runs across the world. Because right now, he's gone. House that his dad had purchased for him and his family that been there for 4 decades is up for sale. Like, this is real. This is meeting people at their doorstep. And I think it's incumbent upon us to kind of think through, how do we reach the runs of the world from wherever we might sit?
I'm Veronica Listabelle. I'm an OBGYN. I've been practicing in the New Orleans area for over 20 years now. I'm at Ocean Health. But I also run programs within the Louisiana Department of Health. This is Devonta Brown. So I have the pleasure of working with Veronica at Louisiana Department of Health as the Health Equity Director for a few years in various other positions. I currently work as a Regional Director for a Contraceptive Access nonprofit, as well as a public speaker and a sexuality wellness educator for over 25 years.
Again, I'm a wellness chef, I'm a private chef. I help to get people back in the kitchen.
I'm Lynette Sprand. I'm a pharmacy manager at Walmart in Medellin, Louisiana. On this panel, I'm probably the most readily available healthcare professional servicing a unique population of patients at our pharmacy.
Ways around it. I know that there are things that are expensive. Like if you think of salmon, fresh salmon, very expensive. I don't care how you cut it. There's some pre-frozen salmon that might work for some people.
The way that I got it cheap
How's that?
was I used to go, when we lived in Houston, go to
the supermarket.
Even in the counter in Walmart. If you go there and you ask them, have you cut and filleted your salmon? What you do with the rest of it that you're about to throw away? Don't throw it away.
So just ingenious though.
Can I buy the bag? Well, Fiesta in Houston would always do
it,
but we're at Walmart, so we're going to go ahead and ask
Right.
But it happens.
Ask them for like the pieces, right?
Yeah.
That you can't sell.
And they will bag
and
it,
what is the
and
rate?
They will price it. They will price it about $1 or $2 lower.
Yeah.
And you're getting cheap salmon. All you got to do is pull it off the bone. You can make your salmon croquettes. You can make a salmon salad.
Right.
You can still use salmon.
Right.
Oh yeah.
You can do so many things with it, right? It doesn't have to be the fillet and the traditional. Just get it in. Yeah. But I have chia seeds in my house right now that is from Walmart. Yeah. Chia seeds have more omega-3 than salmon. And if you can't, and it's something that is shelf stable, like, and not in a bad way. I can keep it in my cabinet for probably a year or so, and it's safe.
But then you got to teach us how to use
and I
seeds,
sure will.
Right? You got to teach us how to put it in your overnight oats. How to mix it into your
how to put it in your homemade granola bars.
Exactly. So you got to teach that though, right?
And I do.
It's really, but it goes back to something that you said, Devondra. Like, I had never thought of kale until I was an adult woman. And so there are vegetables and things that we may not have had as children that we have to really dig into and think about exploring and introduce to our children.
And ones that we need to reintroduce, because I had Brussels sprouts that were Jolly Green Giant brand, loaded with butter in this plastic container, and you could put it in the microwave for a few minutes and feed your family, and it smelled terrible and it was greasy. And it just fell apart because it was frozen. And I said, I hate Brussels sprouts. Then I went to culinary school, and someone was in charge of making Brussels sprouts for that assignment. And I said, this is Brussels sprouts? You mean for the last 25 years I've missed out on this? And now it's always in my house. I make salads out of it. I saute it. I roast it in the oven. And it's loaded with nutrition, and it's a superfood.
I was just about to say, you hit on something earlier, though, that I think is important for everybody to think about, is that you have to connect the what you need to do to the why you want to do it, right? And
if it's not for the egg.
And it's right, even if it's not for the
egg. For the men in the room, they'll give you incentives.
Even if it's not for the egg, it could be more immediate. And this is where my specialty comes in. Maybe it's for the betterment of the sex life.
Touche.
Actually provide diabetes screening free to the members at home. And when I now we work with so many health plans, and I just love it because it's actually giving people free healthcare screenings and meeting them where they are at. And then connecting them basically all the way to follow-up care and if they need prescriptions and into the ecosystem. But that is one way where we found it's a win-win. Everybody wins. The health plans is giving free screenings to people at where they are. Patients are getting early detection. Simple Health Kit is the vehicle to go get it done. And then what we're excited is about partnerships across even retail. So Walmart is, say, thanks to Regine, kind of spearheaded and guided us in where to go in such a big organization.
Both of you come from different backgrounds, so I want to kind of get into that conversation as we're talking about food as medicine. I would like to ask you about the challenges that you see in your work with the patients that you see or the constituents having access to food, right? But before we go there, I do want to kind of expound on the food as medicine, because we're talking about all of these things that they need access to in order to maintain their levels or to address an issue that's come up. How does food help you to feel good or to actually be healthy? Because I think a lot of us associate our health with the way that we feel, right? Like, I have asthma. If it's really humid outside and I wake up and my chest is tight, I'm not feeling great that day. So I may decide I need to have a cup of tea versus drinking a cup of coffee, just as an example, right? So I think that we may not be aware of how food can help and necessarily hurt our bodies. Can you talk about that first, and then we can talk about how the food can be used with the other things that we just talked about?
Awesome. Yeah, so food is critical. It's what you put in your bodies. I think there was a example about, I think one of the NFL players had mentioned, you don't want to put 83, 82 gas in your BMW. And so you want to make sure it's what you put in your bodies is what, to be honest, is a consequence. So I thought yesterday was very powerful. When you think of the South, you think of, delicious food, the gumbos, and what I was also really, people think healthy food is right now associated with, rabbit food, like it's not going to be tasty.
Right.
Yeah, and a lot of times I know that during consultations, patients don't realize, or customers in general don't realize that we are what we eat. Plenty of times they'll come up with blood pressure medication. I don't want to be on blood pressure medication for the rest of my life. What can I do? A lot of times just helping them understand making small changes at first. For the example you gave with drinking the tea instead of coffee. So some patients don't realize that can contribute to high blood pressure. The caffeine can cause issues with your blood pressure, which is something that we're consuming. So the point you made about making like the different recipes, we want to put the salt in it because we want the sodium, not the sodium, we want the flavor that the sodium is going to give the food, but we don't realize what effect it's having on our blood pressure. I had a patient just a couple days ago ask me, how do I feel when my blood pressure is high? I said, you're not going to feel when your blood pressure is high. You just have to know that whatever you're putting in your body, if it's not the healthiest thing for you, then it won't help your body. You don't want to be on the blood pressure medication, but just know that if you're not making those healthy lifestyle changes or even those small changes throughout the day, then it's not going to get better.
Excellent. First of all, thank you all so much for the invitation to be here. I love New Orleans. I'm so happy to be here. We just ate right before coming. Y'all, the hospitality, the food, the magic, the weather they've got. I know y'all were under some snow, which I'm used to being from New York. So I was like, we're gonna get there. But lovely to be here, and I'm happy to be in community with y'all today. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to build on what was already happening in conversation here about nutrition and food as medicine. And one of the things I like to think about often when talking about food, especially in my background, which I'll share shortly, is that, coming from California, where I was raised, and growing up in a family where we could go outside and grab greens from the garden. My grandmother would make soup because I would pull things from the yard. And then I studied with a master herbalist, and so I learned about plant systems and botany at an early age. And so I was always connected to food and thinking about food as a pathway for healing, but also a pathway to empowerment. And we think about in our communities, like our life force has always been food. We have evolved over time. When our ancestors were brought here, they brought with them food. Right? On their bodies, they had seed that they carried with them to the Middle Passage that was planted here. And so that's how we got our okra, right? And our beans and our rices and the things that we still eat to this day. And so I've always had this tether and this connection, but then in my work, which evolved into maternal health, I'm the founder of a global maternal health education platform called Mama Glow. And through that work, we support women and families primarily on the childbearing continuum. So through doula work, does anyone know what a doula is? Anybody? Beautiful. And so we train doulas and nurse care managers to work within healthcare systems to improve maternal health outcomes. So really important as we frame up today, and I think we should continue a conversation here, so I'm not just talking, but that how we can use food not only as fuel, but also as a partner in our health, right? And how we can think about the ways that I like to think about in culturally what we face as community members, right? Because how many of us do not live really close to a grocery store, right? How many of us live close to a liquor store though, right? You can get cigarettes, liquor, you can get, right? A lot of things, right? But not necessarily like a Whole Foods, right? And then even when these, these stores are in our community, we can't access them. That's why Walmart has always been in our communities, right? There's always places where we can get access to healthy food, but we have to also make it a choice, right? But what happens when we don't have choice? We have the illusion of choice. We end up not making always the best, choices for ourselves health-wise, right? And so part of that is because of how there's structural barriers, right, to food access and food security. And we call that food justice, right? Looking at the systems that create barriers to our food access. But then also, when we think about where we're located, right, people call food deserts, which is really food apartheid because deserts happen naturally, right? This is actually systemic, so we call it food apartheid, which is really what it is, right? And it's the inability to access the things that we need to actually grow and thrive as communities, which is systemic, but also by design. Because if we were the ones growing all the food, teaching people how to actually cultivate plant systems, right? We were the ones that teach people farming in this country, but we don't own any of the farms, right? We're the ones who are birthing all the babies, Black and Indigenous women, but now 2% of us, and one of them's in here, right, are the ones who actually birth the babies in this nation, right? We were the ones taking care of each other with not only food, but plants. We understood plants because Black people and Indigenous people worked together to understand what the plants were that were on the ground here that we could use as medicine and imbue in our food, right? Did you know that all the foods that we eat also have culinary herbs that have health benefit? Right? What are the bases of like all the good food that we make? It's got onion and bell peppers and garlic and what else? All kinds of things that have so much health benefit, antioxidants, anti-inflammatories, antifungals, antivirals in the food, in the base of what we make, right? The base of gumbo already is healthy. We got okra, right? Which is mucilaginous. It's like it coats our mucosa. It actually helps our bodies, right? And so I think if we think back to the ways in which we, had to evolve under systems that are still working against us since before we were even born, right? We have to think about how much we've gone through and how much we've overcome, and how food has also been part of this journey that I feel like has been like a partner with us, right? And so I think what we're really all talking about today is not thinking about food in a punitive way, like not punishing us for choices, but really thinking about what additionally can we do to improve health. Because one of the things I feel like is not central to the conversation when people say, oh, high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, kidney and liver disorders, all these things, right? Blood disorders, these things all exist, but I want to talk about hypertension specifically. Because hypertension, what does that mean when that comes up for you, hypertension? What does those two words even mean? high stress, tense, right? Tense. What is the tension about? Think about like the people in our lives who have lived under systemic racism, who've literally lived under threat their entire lives. Tension and stress, like you talk about, and factors that they cannot control, right? So if you have to live under factors that you cannot control, and we talk about social determinants of health, we'll talk about this more, which are like the non-medical factors that contribute to all of the social factors that impact our lives, you know, medically even, right? If you live under that kind of stress, if you can't, you know, improve things like poverty that you might be living under, or systemic racism that you're living under, or whatever it is that you're living under, right? Then that also impacts, you know, your health. And so why is it though that for Black people, we're always talking about food? When everybody eat the same in this country, don't everybody eat everybody else's food? We eat everybody's food, by the way, right? And all these conversations that they're having about, in this administration, y'all, about getting rid of people. I'm like, if you want to take people away, are you going to take their food too? Or are they going to leave their food behind, right? Because if you take all of our food, you don't have nothing to eat here because everything we made or somebody else that came here made, right? And so, and all of that food is the same. It all contains sodium, it's sweet. If you think about the American diet, it's like sweet and salty mostly. We have some sour, but it's mostly sweet and salty. Everyone eats the same, but how come we're only talking about Black people's health?